Morning, everyone. And I hope you have had a good week so far. Friday today, and another lesson from me from the unit Medicine Through Time and Over Time. And the next couple of lessons we're actually looking at the 1800s and the time period when Lister and Simpson were working, and also Pasteur and Koch were working, but we're looking at public health. If you remember, earlier this year we did a lesson where we looked at a picture of a town, London, in the 1400s, and how poor public health was, and how people were throwing the waste on the streets and drinking from the water and getting different diseases, and burning kind of rotten putrid meat and selling in the streets, and building their latrines and privies and cesspits, and this kind of disgusting idea that a lot of the country at the time was very unhealthy, and the government were kind of more concerned at the time, and the kings were more concerned with war. But they were starting to find people for littering and things. So the start today is about how dirty was Britain in 1800s. It's a key learning question. If you just write that down in the date and then press pause and see if you can actually get from A to B. If you can't get from A to B, try and get from A to C, or try and answer some of the questions in the grid to start with. Okay, so press pause and have a go at that now. Okay, so we're going through really quickly. Obviously A, but germ theory created by Louis Pasteur and his team of scientists, a French scientist, with all the experiments on mice, on silkworms, on gone-off milk, beer, wine. And if you're going across, list 2 factors that helped him. You could have quite a few. There's obviously individual genius, science and technology improving, teamwork as another factor. You could also have communication and how the theory was accepted eventually, competition with Pasteur or with Koch, but mainly kind of science, technology and individual genius. Next one was what was penicillin, and we know is an antibiotic, created started off in 1929 by chance when mould flew into the petri dish of Alexander Fleming, which is the next question, who found it? Alexander Fleming, and then obviously Florian Chain took it a step further and mass-produced it during World War II when America came in. The final question, what was the first antiseptic, is carbolic acid. Okay, if you didn't go that way and you went down, chloroform obviously is anaesthetic. James Simpson discovering chloroform by chance when he was with colleagues at Edinburgh University, a mixture of ether and hydrochloric acid. And then magic bullets, which we touched at last lesson, were obviously chemical drugs that targeted specific microbes and killed specific diseases. So that's where we are with those, and that's those key questions there. Okay, right. We're going to move on today just to look at that question: how dirty was Britain in the 1800s? But before we do, I thought I'd share this with you, because obviously you haven't been able to put these in your books. You can kind of see from number 1 all the way through to kind of number 6. We've kind of touched on quite a lot of those, and I know we'll have to revise them, but we know who Koch is, we know who Pasteur is, we know why they're significant, we know what the germ theory is. We also know a little bit there on number 8 and 9 around anaesthetics and Simpson and Lister and antiseptics. We're going to come back to 7 about everyday treatments, but we're moving on to kind of public health, number 10 in the industrial period, and a little bit about 2 people called John Snow and Edwin Chadwick, who will meet next lesson. So if we just have a look at this image to begin with, I just want you to press pause and give yourself a good 3 minutes looking at this picture, and see what you can identify in the picture. What are the problems with public health in this image here, this cartoon? Okay, hopefully you've had a good chance to have a look at it and you've seen certain things. So you've probably seen, first of all, this kid playing around in the actual dirt and the muck there, and how close these children are around here to the floor and the dirt, and how compact and contaminated it is. I mean, in today's society, there's definitely no social distancing there, is there? So diseases are going to spread quite quickly because everyone has no real understanding that at this stage germs cause disease. So this is before the germ theory, you can tell that. You can also tell people here drying their apparently clean laundry in the street. This is a city, so it's going to be heavily polluted. It's a time of industrialisation, so factories are going to be operating, and there's going to be product from that, which is the smoke and carbon that you're going to see in the air. You can see up here kind of people are looking outside their windows. They're very cramped. You'd be looking at 10 people in one room, families throwing things out of windows still there with a little bit of waste going onto the streets. There's kind of good beds is the sign there, suggesting that people are travelling and staying over. You can even see here a baby in the image. So life expectancy was very low. There's a lot of death rate, and that is represented by the coffin being carried there. Someone's obviously died. You've got a chimney sweep kid in the middle there who part of his job at that age is probably about 7, isn't he? 7, 8, 9 was to sweep the chimneys. You've got people smoking down here in the streets and sat down. And you've got disease being spread in a really tightly compact, contaminated area with lots of people. And you can see these houses, these back-to-back houses that were built to try and put as many people in as possible. And the point at the bottom is a court for King Cholera. I don't know whether you had a chance to look at what that actually means, but cholera is a disease. It's a waterborne disease that kills many people at the time. And obviously, they're calling cholera a king because it's got power. It's got power over the people because they don't know where it's coming from, but it's killing people. They don't know at the time that it's the germs in the water that's creating cholera and killing people. So that's the idea there, that it's a court for cholera. So all of these people are going to be victims potentially of the power of the disease cholera. Okay. So by all means, as we go through this, pause it, make notes. That's the whole point of doing the YouTube video sometimes rather than the Teams lesson, because you can pause it. But the second bullet point there is massive, isn't it? That the average life expectancy is 30. So you can see at this time of industrial change where pollution's high, it has massive effects on people's living and working conditions, and it makes them worse. So not many people are living beyond 40 in cities, and the average life expectancy is 30, which is very different to today. And that's all because of disease killing people, and a lack of understanding that germs cause disease, because it's before the germ theory, and also a lack of understanding of cleanliness and hygiene at this time. So how dirty was Britain? So if you just take a minute to jot that down, the growth of towns and cities in a mind map. And there are many, many reasons why Britain was so dirty. But the first one you can add to a strand on your mind map is the fact that people are tightly compact. And there's a massive, massive growth of towns and cities with the Industrial Revolution, that people are moving to the towns and cities for work and to get some money. And alongside that, you've got this pollution being created and disease being spread, so they're in tight, compact spaces. So that's the first one. I'm going to show you some pictures so that you can try and build up your mind map now, and note something down from each picture, which shows you a reason why Britain was so dirty and a reason why people were dying of disease at this time. So there's the first picture. Obviously a modern day picture, but you're probably picking up that the next point you might write is houses were built very closely together to try and compact as many workers in and give as many rooms to people living in cities. Again, back-to-back housing, not much outside space. Disease is going to be spread really easily. Not much green space. You can see the chimneys there, which are used obviously as part of the fires that are used to burn and warm the homes and then create the pollution with that. They wouldn't have smokeless coal or anything like that at this time. Interesting picture here about problems. You can see a kind of side-on view of a house and how many people are actually living in there, and even one person's having to stay and live underground in a damp cellar. Another interesting picture which links the working conditions with the living conditions, and look at all of the waste there and all of the rubbish that is cropped up there, all of the kind of washing lines that are strung across, and how disgusting those conditions are. And then a actual bird's eye view just showing you the town planning. And town planning is trying to cram as many people in as possible. So all those grey dark dots that you can see
are houses, and there's not much green space there, which would improve people's health. There isn't any. Okay, so you've probably had a chance to go through yourself. You can press pause on any slides and make better points than I've made if you need to. That's absolutely fine, but you can see what the problems are. This next slide here shows you two sources, and I just want you to take a look at the two sources and try and work out what these sources show about conditions in cities. So press pause and give it a go. Try and get your head around it. Don't just not press pause now and wait for me. Actually do some thinking. So press pause and try and work out what these sources are showing. To help you, Rutland is a countryside area. It's a rural area, much like North Yorkshire. Liverpool is a big city. Okay. Labourers are workers. Okay. Tradesmen are people that are selling. And gentry or professionals are the rich that don't tend to work but own land and own factories. And the actual numbers in the graph are showing you the average age that people die at. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to get your head around those. Please press pause and have a go. Okay. Source one is actually based around a report by someone we're going to learn a bit about next lesson called Edwin Chadwick. He goes around and collects statistics and of the amount of people dying in two locations. And you've got Liverpool, which is a massive city, an urban area, and Rutland, which is a countryside area. So the first thing you probably noticed is that in all three types of professions, those living in the countryside live longer and they have a higher life expectancy than those living in the city. And also you will find generally that the richer live longer. So the richer are actually living longer at the time than the poor labourers, who actually have an average life expectancy of 15 in the city, which is ridiculous. The source on the right as well is a cartoon where you can see a rich man handing something to something monster type person in the Thames. You can see around it dead animals to represent that there's disease and death in there. The person looks like he's representing some form of animal coming to kill, and there's pollution coming from factories in the background there. And it's interesting to see what you think about what that letter or what that note is that the rich is giving to the individual there and the monster in the Thames. And I really love you to put some points on sharing my homework or send me a message to say what you think that is. Okay, but generally you can see what they're showing about conditions in cities from those two sources. The same here, what diseases were in the slums. So take a look at those, press pause again and just work out death rates and diseases in the slums and cities. Press pause. Okay. First source, you can probably see death rates from cholera, which is waterborne, rising in those 2 years there, but then falling afterwards, because there's some work done by someone called Jon Snow. Not Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, but Jon Snow, a scientist or an epidemiologist who works at this time. He discovers the cause of cholera around about 1848, so the death rates do go down when they begin to understand it's from water. But cholera is a killer. And you can see the second poster there is obviously after the work by Snow, because they understand that it's something to do with eating and drinking and cold water. And they're asking people to abstain, which is to stop using cold water. And they're beginning to develop a little bit of an understanding. Tuberculosis as well is a big killer of children, you can see on the left. And they're beginning to understand that they need to stay away from sick people. And obviously you've got the amount of people dying and the fact there's no graveyards and stuff, and all the bodies being piled up there on the right hand side to suggest there's a lot of disease and death in these cities and these slums. This one, I'm not too sure whether you will be able to see. I hope you can, okay? Because this is about significance, and what I would ask you to do in the lesson is I'd ask you to read through these cards and just organise them in any order that you think is best, and one being the one where you think the argument is a reason why people's health were bad, and 8 being the least significant and least important argument. There's no right or wrong answer, it's just about thinking. So I'm going to move it slightly forward just there, and you can pause the screen when you get there, and just take a read of those. I think it's important that you just read them. If you're just pausing the screen and reading those, it will give you some ideas on why things were not done at the time to protect people's public health, because there's lots of issues there. I think the key thing really is just to read these. If you're able to make some notes on them with that question at the top, then do. But the key thing is to read those really and get your head around those. Okay, so we've had a look at that. Now you've looked at all of that, I want you just today to spend a little bit of time just really going back, looking at your notes, making sure that you have paused on certain screens, and try and answer these 2 questions in paragraphs about what the problems were in industrial Britain and what were the causes of public health problems. And that's kind of it today. I wanted to give you a little short video of 15-20 minutes and then let you go away and press pause and work through these at different points. If you have got the actual pack that I gave you before you left, or you've got your White Revision Guide, there is a section in the White Revision Guide on this and on public health in the 1800s, which is this one here. I'll just hold it up. Just there, it's that one. If you can see it anywhere, improvements in public health. It might have a slightly different number at the top, but it's that one there, because that will be something also really good to have in front of you or read through to improve your understanding of this. Okay, right, guys. I am actually back in school every day next week, so what I'm going to try and do is set up a Teams lesson for both Year 9 and Year 10 classes at separate times, and then obviously keep going with these videos, because the fact is that you need to continue just dipping your hand in and continue working through this. Those that are working in books, absolutely brilliant, and if you do come to the end of the book, let me know and we can sort out getting you a new one. If you are working in paper or computer, just make sure that they're printed off and kept together, or saved in a file together and kept together, so when you come back in we can keep all of your work, because it's really important that you don't lose it. Right, good luck with this today. I hope it's been okay. Let me know if you've got any questions, and please, on Show My Homework, just post pictures of your work or notes to say that you've watched the video, so that I can kind of make sure that you're up to date. Okay, thanks, have a good day, bye.